Hey guys, it's Chelsea from The Financial Diet. And thanks to Avast for sponsoring today's video. Trusted by over 435 million users, Avast prevents over 1.5 billion attacks every month by empowering you with digital safety and privacy, no matter who you are, where you are, or how you connect. Avast's new all-in-one solution, Avast One, helps you take control of your safety and privacy online through a range of features. Their best protection yet, Avast One gives you everything you need to take control of your safety and privacy online, and is accessible through a single, easy-to-use interface. And because Avast believes essential protection should be available to everyone, a free version of Avast One includes award-winning free AV, free VPN, free firewall, and much, much more. Avast security solutions stop malware, phishing, and virus attacks, and secures your personal photos, documents, and other files from being modified, detected, or encrypted by ransomware. And I have to personally vouch for the extent to which software like this can give you such a level of peace of mind when you are a digital creator or someone who does a lot of their business online. My co-founder and I are doing a class soon all about sort of the 101s of being an entrepreneur, but especially if your business takes place digitally, which increasingly almost everyone's does to some extent, having the right protections is super important. So thanks to Avast for supporting TFD. Confidently take control of your online world with Avast One. It helps you stay safe from viruses, phishing attacks, ransomware, hacking attempts, and other cyber crimes. Learn more about Avast One at avast.com. And today, after that properly disclosed ad, I want to talk about something that I've brought up here and there on the channel, but that I really think necessitates its own deep dive along the lines of something like the celebrity beauty gaslighting, or the Instagram face phenomenon, or the rise of child labor on the internet. Basically, the internet, especially social media, and especially the influencer economy within that social media, is rapidly changing almost every aspect of our consumer landscape and is usually doing so several steps ahead of proper regulation. And one of the biggest issues when it comes to how we're interacting with content is the absolutely ubiquitous phenomenon of undisclosed and improperly disclosed SponCon. Now, this might sound like a boring topic, but it genuinely has changed the way a lot of young people interact with the world around them, their perceptions, their expectations, their consumer habits, and kind of similar to the celebrity beauty video, is its own kind of form of content-based gaslighting. And because to some extent, most sponsored content has the goal of some kind of financial exchange with their audience at some point, buying something, signing up for something, etc., it's perhaps even more directly financial in nature than some of those other topics. So before I dive into all the nitty-gritty of the influencer stuff, I should say that there is a part 2 of this video, which is all about the specific pseudoscience and faux health content that is flooding social media feeds, especially for women, and is a hugely lucrative part of this influencer problem, again, especially for women creators, and let's be honest, Gwyneth Paltrow specifically. If you want to watch that video, we will link it here in the description, or you can hit the join button, and either way, it is available to members at the $4.99 or above tier of the Society at TFD, which comes with all kinds of other amazing perks in addition to monthly exclusive videos. But let's dive into it. So starting with, what is SponCon? According to datareportal.com, 5 billion people use the internet every day, with Smart Insights reporting that 4.62 billion of them use social media, which is a lot of eyeballs looking at advertising real estate. And sponsored content specifically is a ubiquitous form of advertising where a brand pays a particular creator or influencer to publish something about their product, usually on a blog or social media service, and generally in a style that would fit in with the other kinds of content that their audience consumes. Think things like flat tummy tea posts, those TikToks where wrinkly people rub that stuff on their faces and everyone's skin goes smooth for an hour, or makeup YouTubers doing unboxing videos where they thank each company for their free gift in return for letting you watch them unbox it. It's such an enormous market that I bet you've consumed some sponsored content already today. I recommend Trixie Mattel's videos with Duncan Hines. And what's new in publishing states that among major media publishers, currently 88% of them are publishing sponsored content as part of their revenue strategy. That means that sponsored content isn't just the hot new way for major brands to turn a small profit, it is the most mainstream form of marketing since the very first banner ads started plaguing your websites years ago. An Influencer Marketing Hub stated in its annual report of the industry that the influencer marketing industry is set to grow approximately $16.4 billion in 2022. Kim Kardashian alone is charging an alleged $500,000 per post. And while not everyone is going to have such lucrative opportunities to promote a brand or product, it has become such a lucrative and high-profile job that many young people now cite wanting to become influencers as a career. And while that may not seem so shocking on its face, it's important to consider that what they're saying in that is not that they want to create any particular kind of art or editorial or even educational content. It's that they specifically want to be the type of influential media personality that's being paid to shill products. That's what an influencer is. Saying someone's an influencer doesn't tell you any more about what they actually create than saying that they're online. And given that now more than 50 million people consider themselves content creators of some kind, the leap between that, which I'm no one to sneeze at, I've made an entire career from being a content creator, but it's a pretty short leap from that to professional influencer. Now, one of the main reasons that sponsored content is as successful as it is because the consumer often feels that it's a more easy form of advertising to live with. As I mentioned before, a lot of sponsored content is so integrated into the content itself that many people don't even realize it's an ad, or the ad is so much a part of the content that it's basically impossible to separate the two. And that can sound positive in the sense that you don't have the experience of watching a TV show with really annoying commercial breaks every 15 minutes. But it's important to remember that it is still advertising, and therefore needs to be subject to all the rules that were created and put in place for advertising, specifically to avoid a lot of the problems we're seeing now with sponsored content. And if you're an especially advertising-averse digital consumer, like the roughly 1/4 of internet users who block out ads to some extent, it's important to note that marketers have very much responded to that. And it is in part because of the extreme nature of ad blocking that integrating advertisements into content in a way that can't be skipped or blocked or ignored has become more and more the norm. And this isn't new, right? Think of how the Masters of the Universe franchise was created specifically to sell dolls to boys, or how much James Bond loves drinking a Heineken so that the ad can never be removed or blocked. And this has also created abominations like the deeply cursed McDonald's sitcom, game shows like Shazam that are basically giant ads for their at-home apps, and the Oscars. But it has also created fantastic works of arguably art. Just look at Mad Men, the Lego Movie, or when TLC wrote the All That theme song. Sometimes advertising can be art. But the explosive growth of advertising on social media in particular has meant that even though this blending of editorial and advertisement is nothing new, it is also evolving and being created at such a pace that it's almost impossible for regulators to properly rein in. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, whose job it is to actually rein in advertisers, released an updated set of regulations in the spring of 2017 which specified the rules for posting sponsored content and the possible consequences should a creator post deceptive or unlabeled advertising. Violating these mandates can result in the suspension of the account by the social media company or the pursuit of further legal action by authorities. Now, essentially all advertising should be properly disclosed and to some extent opt-in. There are real societal reasons why it's very important for people to understand when an advertisement is an advertisement, that whatever endorsement they're hearing is something that has been paid to be given, or in many cases compensated with things like gifts and free product. But it's also nearly impossible to deny the power of so many of these advertisers to basically skip by all the regulations by becoming so integrated into how we perceive the world around us. I mean, Walt Disney World, which is its own entire subgenre of influencers, is in and of itself an ad for the Disney Corporation. People use advertising slogans in their wedding vows. They get logos tattooed on their bodies. Stan culture doesn't just stop at things like pop stars. It also involves brands, which is so cursed. Now, to take it back to influencers, most people who use social media follow some influencers. And if you're someone who has a very narrow, often misogynistic idea of what an influencer is, which is just some vapid girl unboxing makeup in her room, that is a very naive perspective of the industry. Because there are influencers in everything from trout fishing to cigarette reviews, which is very popular on YouTube for some reason, to cooking, to carpentry, to basically everything in between. And their economic proposition is pretty simple. They capture the interest of an audience and form a parasocial relationship with many parts of that audience. And then they sell that attention, that reputation, and that inherent editorial value to brands. And it's important to note that this form of monetization creates an incentive structure where the job of an influencer isn't really to be liked, although that can often be a byproduct. It's to be an effective conduit for whatever it is that the audience is coming to them for, and eventually to some extent monetizing that conduit. People trust the Kardashians to have good lifestyle product recommendations because they've intentionally pushed the message that since they have access to the best of everything, they can save you money and improve your life by curating or sometimes even creating those products. People believe that by watching them and imitating their consumption, their lives will also become glamorous and aspirational. And though you might roll your eyes at the Kardashians, there's likely someone, whether or not they call themselves that, functioning as an influencer for you. Is there someone online whose workouts you like, whose stand-up you tune into, whose political takes elicit fire emojis from you? Even if that person is a literal friend, if they're monetizing that relationship, they are a professional influencer. And it wouldn't be fair to say that any influencer who utilizes their audience and their engagement to work with brands is inherently bad. Again, we do it almost literally every day here at TFD. And there have been really excellent crossovers where a very specific area of expertise and audience is used to lend genuine authenticity and accessibility. For example, Selma Blair joining the team at Guide Beauty to create a line of accessible products for people with disabilities and bringing her audience with her to the brand. If done well and thoughtfully and disclosed properly, sponsored content can be a good form of advertising as far as advertising goes. But unfortunately, the drawbacks often vastly outweigh the positive examples. Because let's be honest, the vast majority of creators got into the business because they're good at creating content to some extent. That means they probably have skills in some sort of creative space, art and design, editorial, or subject matter expertise. They're not doing it because they're lawyers or managers or media buyers or people who are experienced in the world of well-compensated and well-regulated advertising. So many creators, and I've seen this 1,000 times firsthand, often sign incredibly exploitative deals where they're doing all kinds of content in exchange for just some cheap free product, or they're getting paid well below their market value, or they're being expected to basically turn over their entire brand to this advertiser, which can often lead to them creating content that most users would identify as bad, or not it, chief. And those are just the cases when we're talking about actual direct advertising. It's not even addressing the subgenre of advertising that preys on influencers in their community, which is the MLM-ification of it all. At the end of the day, a good influencer has above and beyond a strong community, which is the siren call of any MLM or network marketing company. So yes, even though it may seem like just straight up SpawnCon, many of those more dubious fly-by-night companies that you're seeing being advertised on Instagram actually do have some kind of a pyramid scheme component to them. And with so many different types of advertising, companies of dubious quality, and basically the Wild West in terms of contracts, even though yes, there is increasing language that deals with specific regulation of this space, you have to cast an impossibly wide and fine net to even pick up a few of these really bad actors. And beyond the direct advertising and the MLMs, there's also the beast of affiliate marketing, which is often the least properly disclosed of all the advertising you're likely to see from an influencer. This is basically when an influencer talks about a product or brand or service, has some kind of a link that you can click to go engage with it yourself, and then gets a kickback from that brand when someone makes a purchase through them. For many consumer-focused influencers like beauty, fashion, etc., having a caption or description that is basically riddled with undisclosed affiliate links is essentially the norm. It's not even that a particular video is sponsored per se, it's just that a huge part of their entire revenue strategy is making sure that anytime they talk about basically anything, they're getting a cut of the business if you decide you like it. Now, does this mean, for example, that an endorsement they might have given is total bullshit? Well, often, yes. But the worst part is it's pretty impossible to know because often it's not disclosed at all. According to new Princeton University research, most YouTube and Pinterest influencers still don't add proper disclaimers to the content they produce. The researchers analyzed over 500,000 YouTube videos and over 2.1 million unique Pinterest pins from August to September 2017 for the study. They found that 3,472 videos and 18,237 pins had affiliate links, but only 10 and 7% respectively contained written disclosures. Those that did have disclosures didn't even follow FTC guidelines, which recommend lengthier explanations than, hey, these are affiliate links. And it becomes even more complicated when these celebrities and influencers have more ongoing relationships with a brand, have been paid by them in the past, but perhaps no longer are, or for example, have received products or services that were properly disclosed SpawnCon at one point, but in every subsequent video or post where they appear are no longer being disclosed. Think, for example, an interior design YouTuber who had a room totally redone by Room and Board. Maybe they did a video where everything was properly disclosed, but every subsequent video and Instagram post they have, where people are looking at their living room as though it was just something that they bought and endorsed organically and with their own money, are essentially being deceived. To take it back to the Kardashians, unfortunately, in 2016, Scott Disick made the embarrassing mistake of accidentally posting, "Here you go, 4 p.m. EST, right the below, keeping up the summer workout routine with my morning at Bootoke protein shake." I assume this is saying Booty UK, because it's a British company, but I'm going to say Bootoke. Now, obviously, he was not meant to copy and paste the entire email he received from the brand, but it is an interesting look at just how transactional a lot of these relationships can be, and to what extent so many of the innocuous-seeming products and brands and services that you're going to see in all of these posts actually are probably to some extent paid or gifted relationships. And this moment was particularly revealing because it did show in one fell swoop how detached he actually is from the stuff that he's being paid to shill for his audience. And I would imagine, as someone who does this for my company, The Financial Diet, he looks at his real estate on Instagram the way businesses look at any kind of inventory. It's sorted by value and engagement and exposure and audience, and there is a set price to engage with it. I'm not one to say that this is wrong. Again, it's how we do it. But there is a different level when you are being convinced that the product or service or whatever it is they're being paid to shill is a part of this person's organic everyday life and not part of an advertising campaign done in concert with what is effectively their media business. And it can become especially insidious when the types of authenticity that these brands are trying to tap into are tangled up with some of the most traumatic experiences or difficult moments in life. For example, in the wild, wild world of mommy blogging, being raw and honest and vulnerable has been translated into massively valuable currency for brands to jump on. As Catherine Jesser Morton put it in The Cut, their radical honesty about the frustrations and fears of new parenthood, postpartum depression, sustaining a marriage, dividing domestic labor, breastfeeding, boredom, was all a direct response to the prevailing tone of motherhood media throughout the 20th century, which had largely been cheerful, prescriptive, and patriarchal. When Heather Armstrong had her then-husband John post a note that she had handwritten from her hospital bed, where she was receiving treatment for postpartum depression, it was clear that something had shifted permanently. When Scary Mommy introduced its anonymous confessions tab, where readers could confess and give each other virtual hugs, the confessions crashed in. Mommy blogs in these early days felt like the workers seizing the means of production. Now, it should be said, this radical honesty and often focusing on the uglier parts of the truth is almost inarguably a massive improvement from the sanitized and again quite patriarchal model that we had for so many years in the 20th century. But when that vulnerability is being seized upon by brands who are often exploiting women at their most vulnerable and their most ready to consume because frankly they want anyone to tell them what to do because it's so scary and overwhelming and there are so many choices and so many ways to raise or not raise a child, seems pretty darn exploitative. And similarly, the health and fitness and diet industries have laser focused in on the very unique hyper-authentic relationship that influencers can often have with their audience to sell products based on these often societally driven insecurities. It's not just about a diaper company using a post about postpartum depression to convince a woman's followers that their diaper is the best and perhaps only solution for their child. There's also a wide open market for dubious weight loss products to help women deal with changing bodies post-giving birth. And a very vulnerable picture of a mother in a perhaps unflattering moment, dealing with exhaustion and a changed body. When it comes to the currency of authenticity, which is what makes influencer marketing so valuable, is about the most powerful place you could put an ad for that fitness product. And this doesn't even get into the pseudoscience stuff like the goopification of so much of women's health on the internet in the past 10 years. But do not worry, we have a whole other part 2 video just about that. And I'll briefly mention, though, for a deep dive on this topic, I recommend our recent video on Instagram Face, the extent to which surgical and cosmetic alterations are becoming the domain of sponsored content for celebrities and influencers alike. It shouldn't be controversial to say that anything that is as expensive and invasive and potentially dangerous as surgery should be the last thing we're doing via undisclosed advertisement, but it's becoming almost the norm, with celebrities and reality stars and top-tier influencers having ongoing relationships with things like cosmetic dermatologists and med spas. For example, Trinity the Tuck, a reality star and former winner of RuPaul's Drag Race, promoted her doctor, Chris Funderburk, MD, in an Instagram post about her BBL. The post is not labeled an ad, but it's hard to believe that these two collaborated out of the goodness of their hearts. And while it's well known that Trinity achieved her look through cosmetic procedures, and slay girl, you look amazing on All Stars, and my friend Ryan said to say that he's rooting for you, pushing plastic surgery on social media with or without any disclosure can send people down a rabbit hole of other procedures to address whatever insecurities they might have. Practitioners like Funderburk love SpawnCon so much that they devote an entire social media presence to collaborating with other influencers who will link their profiles, which are packed with every procedure for every insecurity under the sun. And have I mentioned you only need to be 13 to join Instagram and see this stuff? And this is only one in a variety of ways that influencers and celebrities can skirt around the need to disclose exactly what they're doing. Cardi B, for example, can post and rap about how much she loves Fashion Nova to her heart's content because she's not being paid by Fashion Nova to do that. Instead, she has an ownership stake in Fashion Nova, which legally she doesn't have to disclose as an advertisement, but is arguably even more of a conflict of interest. And brands have caught on to this via using their younger employees to act as in-house influencers. One marketer said to Digiday that, quote, "We have young influencers. A lot of them are in college and they're thinking, what's my game plan after graduation? I want to work for a real company. So we've hired influencers as interns, getting them to talk about the brand while working at our company. They're highly networked and we can get new followers and give them experience." Which, aside from the fact is just like ramping up the exploitation of interns to 11, is also a pretty bleak look at the future of how labor is viewed at even fairly well compensated companies. Like, you're not just supposed to do your tasks anymore, you're also supposed to leverage your humanity to be a walking billboard for the company you're paid to work at. Now, I say all of this to say that it seems pretty unavoidable that we're going to have a lot of issues with disclosure of advertising and sponsored content on social media for the foreseeable future. However, it is very important as consumers that we hold the influencers we follow to a higher standard. If you're following an influencer who seems to be doing what is pretty clearly undisclosed advertising or shady relationships, or whose life is filled with products that they were at one point gifted or paid to use, say something, unfollow them. Don't keep giving them money via giving them eyeballs. Follow creators who follow best practices, who properly label advertisements, who go out of their way to not conflate what they buy organically with their own money and out of their own volition with the things that they're being actively gifted or just receive for going to glamorous events. And when you see the rules actively being broken, report them. You can report it within the app as undisclosed advertising or spam, depending on the nature of the ad. You can also literally tell the FTC if you're seeing this happening, especially for a repeat offender. And we'll link you in the description to how to submit that kind of complaint. As I mentioned, this month's members-only bonus video is a deep dive into all of the pseudoscience that has been flooding our social media and has become incredibly lucrative for a certain set of influencers. You can find that at the link in our description, or by clicking the join button and joining at the $4.99 tier to become a member of the society at TFD. And in the meantime, be part of the solution by cracking down on the dubious advertising you're seeing in your own life and feed, and don't put up with the influencers who aren't putting up proper disclosures. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to come back every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday for new and awesome videos.